Welcome back to another episode of With Sonar. I am Luke Palaska, your host. We are live 4 p.m. Wednesday every day, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kyle Taylor, Mr. Miami. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
It's been a long day of media.
Day of media, man.
Sonar, yeah. Apparently, this is what I do now.
You're the new face of FreightWaves, man. You're just on it all. Yeah. Put that coffee down. How was it? It was a great show, by the way. How'd you feel?
It was great. It was actually very nerve-wracking because I'd never done it before.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it was also very interesting to be with Dooner and to be with Kevin all at the same time because, I mean, if you ever are in the same room as Dooner,
it lights up the room. I mean, it's like, what's left?
Yeah.
It's hard to compete. We love you, Dooner. We're not trying to bad out the
Yeah, wherever
we want to be
Dooner
you.
Dooner used to be right over there.
We want to be you.
Yeah. So
great, awesome, man. This is weird. It's just you and I today. I feel like I don't know like where to look right now. It's just us. I mean, it's kind of.
Yeah, it's just me and you today, which is actually going to be awesome.
Show.
I am super excited about this. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, though, right?
We are going to talk about a lot of things. Hold on. We need to talk about something first, though. So, I don't know how many of the folks watching, follow us on LinkedIn, but Kyle in particular posted on Sunday night an article. By the way, this was beautifully written, by the way. Like, I mean, not only are you on TV and different podcasts and your Sonar sales, you're also like on the editorial team apparently with like the quality of article that you wrote. So tell us, what was the title of your article?
Well, it's a great segue because one, I'm batting 1,000, so it's like I had one good article, I'm good.
Just gonna retire now?
Yeah, it got a lot of good feedback on it. No, so it's something that I've been preaching. I mean, if you got to know our Sonar team, we're very sports dominated. I mean, we have an ex-MLB pitcher on our staff. We got a manager who played in a European professional basketball league. Another manager who was played college. I played a little bit of college baseball as well. So I mean, we're surrounded by athletes. So I've always tried to relate data and different decision making to sports. It seems and a lot of people seem to be able to connect with that very well. So my article was really connecting the Moneyball concept with really just data in general,
right?
From a freight brokerage point of view, which got a lot of great feedback because you got to think of things as from the 2002 A's, what Billy Beane did really broke through how business was done previously, which is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to change the way that brokerages and anyone who deals with logistics or moves freight makes decisions on pricing, on kind of everything that could change the way we look at things. So,
no, I think that's a really, really good point. By the way, I'm offended that you didn't mention me. I actually I played swimming.
I played swimming.
I don't actually. Nobody calls it that.
Were you a soccer player?
No, I actually swam. I swam my whole life. Actually, I swam through college.
Okay.
And I always say I played swimming, and people are always like, "Oh, you say that?
Who's this guy?"
No, but yeah, really, I did. I'm kidding. I played baseball for a long time. Baseball was a lot of fun. Moneyball. First off, it was a great movie. And I really enjoyed watching it, and Brad Pitt was great in it. But I think what you said is most important. It changed the game. It changed how everybody thinks about the game. You mentioned. We should have brought Ritchie on for this. Ritchie is our former pro baseball player who now works here, and he's an absolute stud. First of all, very smart when it comes to Sonar, but also just very knowledgeable.
Yeah, go follow him on LinkedIn.
Follow him
Ritchie Daigle.
Yeah.
Daigle. And he's gonna hate me for that one. But no, he's the nicest guy, and he's the one that's really changed the way that I even look at selling because it's what they talked about on Put That Coffee Down, the being so centric towards what the other person wants. Ritchie just knows that, and he's got such a good understanding of how can I be sympathetic towards my prospects or my customers? How can I understand what the other person's going through? So
absolutely, no, 100% there. So he was telling me something about the data from Moneyball. And we're going to tie this back into Sonar, I promise. I know that's the title of the show, but it's coming. He said that the Atlanta Braves figured out, using the data that basically they were collecting and all that stuff, that you'll notice the Atlanta Braves, they typically do pretty well, at least recently.
Yeah.
They usually get to the playoffs. They don't always do well in the playoffs, but they usually at least get to the playoffs. Sometimes they go pretty far in the playoffs, but they at least get there. But they almost never win. And that's by design. That's not by accident. What they do is they found out using the data, the most cost-effective model is using this data. They can basically pick players that folks may not want as much or don't cost quite as much, but they're still good enough to get them there. So they get them to the playoffs every year, the players that they have, but they aren't paying these ridiculous contracts for certain folks. I mean, you got Bryce Harper. He signed a 13-year contract for $350 million not long ago. A couple other folks that were up there. So they avoid those types of contracts when best they can, and they focus on the smaller contracts because those players are good enough to get them to the playoffs, but usually not quite enough. They don't have quite enough depth to win the whole thing. So it's the amount of money that they spend versus how much revenue that they're going to generate from how far they get. It maximizes using that system, and I think that's exactly what Sonar does. It kind of changes the way you think about rather than always trying to create like these massive margin loads, it picks up a few extra pennies here, a few extra pennies there, a few extra pennies there, but does it consistently enough.
Yeah. No, I mean, how does Caney tell us? It's incremental incremental value that you make with every decision.
Yeah.
So with that, it's pennies lead to thousands of dollars, and in order to do that, you can't do that on historical, or you can do it on historical information, but historical or delayed information. How can you make a decision on, wherever your historical information ends? How can we start to enhance that? Yeah. And so I think that's exactly what Sonar does. And I think, what are you hearing out in the market right now from maybe some people you're talking to?
Well, in terms of like decision making?
Yeah, for like this week, because everything seems to be week to week. Yeah. And what we heard 2 weeks ago is different to last week. Yeah. Last week seemed like Armageddon to a lot of people, and this week seems to be a little bit more of a breath of fresh air. Not as much, but a little bit.
Yeah, so it depends on who I'm talking to, right? When I talk to, and a lot of it depends on the industry, right? The folks that are in the car and the entertainment industry is just getting absolutely smashed still. There's just no business for them. But for most folks that are fairly diversified, when I talk to the carriers, their contractual business, the ones that are moving more contractual business are doing a lot better than the ones that are moving mostly spot business. The contractual market is recovering a lot faster than the spot market is. The spot market doesn't look like it's recovering at all.
Right.
The contractual market, on the other hand, is so that's one thing. They're getting more volume from their contractual business, more volumes coming back to that and moving away from the spot market as rates come back down. So now the brokers, on the other hand, they're seeing that, hey, there's still a ton of capacity out there. Yep. There's moments where that changes as this shift sort of happens from spot market to contractual market, but they're seeing plenty of excess capacity. So it just sort of depends on where they are. Something that I think is interesting, though, is folks that play in the spot market versus folks that are in the contractual market, they're going to have completely different experiences during this whole time.
No, I think it's definitely market to market still, and I think it's based off of, are you exposed to the spot market or are you heavy on the contract side?
Yeah.
I think something that I broke down on a video earlier this week on my LinkedIn, which was showing that rates are plummeting. So we see an oversupply of capacity in the market. We see that volumes are, I believe, what did the last see it at? About 12% down year over year compared to last year. And so when you have that going on, it's really making it tough for carriers. It's making it decent for brokers because you can play the shipper carrier kind of in between play where I'm maintaining price but trucking cost is going down. Yeah. So that's what I'm hearing is that it's really tight out there for carriers.
Yeah, absolutely. So. You also mentioned something else earlier. I think on another post. We post a lot on LinkedIn. Folks don't even need to watch this show. They can get everything from our LinkedIn at some point. Hopefully this is a little more precise.
Don't say that. They'll shut us down.
Yeah. Keep watching, please. Yes. But no, you mentioned something about, and I think Kevin Hill actually commented on this, that if spot market rates continue to dive to the levels that they are and they don't slow down, shippers may start to rebid some of their freight.
Yeah, actually, from that post, I actually got a lot of good feedback from brokers and a couple of shippers who are saying that they're already pausing them. You know, we already hit this weird wall where price was through the roof, so they already paused some of their contractual business there because they didn't want to pay more. So now that we're seeing it kind of on the opposite foot, they're like, we're just halting things until everything comes to a stop. And that's the savvy shippers. Let's be real. Those are the shippers that really have a good sense of their markets and what's going on for a pricing perspective. Now, if you are a shipper who may not have the technology, or you don't, there's only 3 people in their logistics department. How do you expect them to go to a spot market? You know, maybe they don't have the bandwidth. So you're still going to see those players in the industry that will still do their contract or hold their contracts in place, but. We're seeing a lot of pausing going on right now. So,
no, absolutely, I totally agree with that. But there's got to be. I've been looking at something today. One of the things that I like to do. I'm an optimist, so I like to look for when things are going to flip around. Now they may not. May be totally out of line, and maybe that we might be in for a second wave of declines. But I've been looking at Sonar for data sets that are some leading indicators for what might happen, or for when the bottom in the freight market is going to happen.
Right.
You know, we've continued to see freight volumes decline, tender rejections decline, rates decline. But I think at some point, things can only go so low. The question is, when does that happen? And I know they say don't try to guess the bottom, but I'm an optimist, so I want to do it anyway. Do you think that we're either at or near a bottom? And if so, what would it look like?
Well, I think everything's a domino effect here. So let's try to look at both sides of the spectrum here. So if rates do continue to fall, what's going to happen next? Right. What I think is going to happen next is that trucks are going to shut down. They're going to stop driving. I mean, we start going, you can't haul for less than $1 a mile consistently. Sure. Maybe you can, you do that to get into a good market, or but you can't do that consistently. And so
that can't be your better paying lanes.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's starting to happen consistently, then you're better off just shutting down the truck. You're not going to crank the engine. So what's going to happen there is that we're going to see tightening in capacity. So rates are going to come back up. So I mean, like you said, there's a floor. There's definitely, how we hit that floor is definitely going to be based on when that carrier is going to shut down or not.
Yeah.
And I think we're close. We're already seeing it on, we see it on Chad's page on Facebook on the Rate Per Mile Masters, and so.
No, I agree. I think I could really see us being close to the bottom, in terms of volumes. So we're talk about volumes for a minute. I think we could be close in terms of volumes at the bottom, but I think we could stay here for a little bit. This isn't like a stock market ping where I think we hit the bottom and we bounce off. Right. After a few, I don't think that's the case. I think we hit the bottom, and I think we could stay there for a little while before we begin a climb back up.
Right.
Now, I think the climb back up could actually be quite volatile, but I think we may hang out at the bottom for a little while before that happens. We've already started to see freight volumes slow down their decline, still declining, but not declining quite as fast. What do you have to? Any feedback around that?
No, I mean, our CEO was on this morning with Bloomberg, and he kind of said it spot on. We're feeling the floor start to come, and so there's 2 trains of thoughts there, I think, and what you had brought up earlier on LinkedIn, which is we're feeling that floor. We could, I'm thinking that we're gonna feel that floor, but then we're gonna maybe come up a little bit, but then tank back down if we're not going back home.
Yeah.
I think, I said this last week, I said it the week before, it's when do we go back to work? I mean, we can try to see when the floor is, but if we're still working from home and these restaurants are still closed, we're going to see more and more businesses go down. Consumer sentiment's going to go through the floor. Anthony talks about the sentiment. He loves sentiment, and because if no one's willing to spend money right now, then how can you see a positive effect in the market of freight market or the economy?
So there's something that I've been looking at to see when things are going to come back online. If we go ahead and flip to Sonar here on my screen real quick for folks to be able to see what you're looking at in front of you. This is the number of U.S. customs ocean imports coming from China to the U.S.
Right.
Right? So what you've got here, the blue line, look at the blue line for just a minute, ignore everything else. The blue line is the number of shipments currently. So we're sitting at right about a little over 15,000 shipments. The green line is 2019 over the same period of time. Now you'll notice here that we stopped updating on the 7th. This data set, you have to wait for things to clear customs, so it's always a few days behind. It does update on a daily basis, but it's usually about a week behind. So we'll continue to see here soon. So, we're just comparing, where we are right now. What's most interesting though, if you see that blue line, it's eclipsed the green line. It's now above the green line for the first time since the beginning of February. So we saw this massive decline in ocean imports from China to the U.S. is huge. I mean, see how much further below we are from the green line. So that's that deficit we're having to make up. We moved all the freight already, and no imports were coming in. Yeah. So now we're paying that back.
Right.
As to why volumes are so low right now. But this right here, if that blue line continues to push up, I think we could start to see it could be signs of a bottom. Not necessarily of an increase, but it could be signs of hey, we've got enough freight to support. That, I don't know, that's my thought. And now this could just be an anomaly and we could just start tanking right again.
Yeah, we could just be having such a huge backup in that port that we were expecting anyways.
Yeah.
China's up and running, but they're up and running, 2 weeks ago?
Right.
So, new shipments coming across the water are still yet to come.
Right.
So we're talking about shipments that were already set to arrive or that are backlogged. Right. And so we're finally seeing those start to move. Even today, coming out of California to Texas is running for I think 90 cents per mile. So it's still, volumes are up, but that how it relates to the trucking market, the prices are still in the ground.
Yeah.
So
especially for the spot market.
Oh yeah. The West Coast ever since the beginning of COVID-19 really turned into a graveyard because no one wants to go over there. Ever since we had a halt in the Chinese imports, we saw that here. We could see here at the bottom, right at the March 7th, really hitting that, and through the 14th, having that Chinese New Year into the COVID shutdown, no one wanted to go over there because rates are just. California or LAX, they had volumes keep them afloat. They're okay with having low rates because at least we have volumes that are going to take us to Memphis, going to take us to Chicago, going to take us to the other side of the country where we can get better paying loads. But now, you don't have that.
Yeah.
So what do? You avoid California at all costs is what you see. So.
But I think what this is going to do is we're going to see an imbalance and we're going to start to see things change, right? So the imports are coming back up. Obviously, that has to get moved somewhere. It's not going to stay on the ship, right? Yeah. It's going to get offloaded off the ship. It's going to get moved into warehouses, even if it doesn't end up in retail stores right away. It's going to get moved.
Yeah.
And a truck will move it, and of course, some of it will go on intermodal, but that's another story. The thing that I think is really valuable here is I think we're gonna see a lot of pockets start to experience surges.
Yeah.
I was looking at Austin, Texas. Now, Austin, Texas is not a huge outbound market by volume. Nothing like Dallas or Fort Worth, right? Or Houston, much smaller than those. But still it's got some freight. Even after the surge that we've seen right now, with the volumes coming down and everything, Austin, Texas, outbound volume is 50% higher than it was at the beginning of February before all this started. It's still 50% higher. It's obviously lower than where that little surge was, but it's still 50% higher than where it was 2 months ago.
Yeah,
50% higher.
That's insane. Dallas is really taken over the entire state right now. That's a great place to find outbound freight. But no, you're right. The only thing you can do is try to track the data that you have. With sonar. So, how do you track with it? How do you keep up to date on this? Even if you're not using sonar, what would you have to do? If you were running your brokerage or a carrier, what are the kind of things you'd be looking at? And I think you hit it on the head with this. Looking at, you got to see the imports, but you also got to be market to market, because things that you may have done 2 months ago are not going to work today. So how do you pivot from there? And it's having the most up to date knowledge you can in order to understand a curveball is coming your way. So
100%. So what would you say for folks that don't have this type of visibility? I mean, are there any tools out there that they can use to get some of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the 3 pillars of decision making is what I've labeled it, which is very organized. But it's one, you have your historical data.
Right.
You've created a business, you've gotten to where you've gotten, and you've made good decisions in the past. So you have your hot lanes, you got your lanes that you do all the time that you have a really good pulse on. So you have your historical business that you can rely on. Secondary, you have your third-party data, which includes assessment tools, includes sonar, it includes any kind of outsourced data, outside data that can expand your markets outside of what you're doing on a day-to-day. And then finally, you pull out that good old phone and you say, hey, Luke, what are you seeing over there at your trucking company? And so that's really what people are doing. It's, okay, well, that's why we're such a tight-knit community here, is that we can call each other. It's not, I mean, it's a very manual process. It's the way things have been done for 10, 20, 30 years. You just go see what everyone else is doing. You want to know what your neighborhood's doing? Go see what your neighbor's doing. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what people are doing right now. But where sonar plays into that is that you may not have to call that friend now. Now you can maybe add this into a quicker. Now you don't have to pick up the phone and have that 30-minute conversation with your counterpart. So I think it's having that, and that's how people can really break this down a little bit further than they could in the past.
Yeah, it's market-driven data, right?
Yeah.
You're not taking an assessment by calling folks. I mean, heck, we've talked with folks, and like they've got a massive sales team, and like they'll make 10,000 calls a day. Yeah. And it's like that's still a fraction of the market, right? What we're seeing, we're measuring the entire market.
And we do Robinson, 3% of the market, 2% of the market. Yeah. I mean, they're a massive entity that no one wants to go up against.
The biggest intermediary in the United States.
Yeah, and they're still only taking a fraction of that market.
Yeah, 2 to 3%, maybe.
So, but what can you do? I think we should go to the comments real quick.
Yeah, what do we got here?
So I think on LinkedIn, Amanda Miller, hey, how you doing at Freight Sales? She's coming from Atlanta. Garrett Lacey, me and him have had a couple conversations this week. This guy is loving the data. Yeah, contracted freight is producing much higher margins than spot freight at this present time.
Makes perfect sense. That's just what we were talking about earlier.
And then Alyssa Cooley from Open Road Transportation wants to see, how, after volumes return to normal, do you have any projections on how fast capacity will return to the market? And I think that's actually a great point.
That's a real good one.
Because I don't think capacity is leaving. Yeah. Not yet. Like we said, when rates get to a certain point, trucks stop.
That's why rejections are so low right now.
Yeah, everyone's accepting freight, accepting any and everything right now. So I don't think capacity is leaving. I just think there's too much competition in the market.
Yeah.
So.
No, agreed. Yeah. I mean, there's something that we've shown before is like when this volume surge happened, you have volume spike about 30%, right? Overall in the truckload volume from the very end of February to the third week or so of March. So you surged about 30%. What happened was tender rejection. So the rate that carriers were rejecting their contracted loads, it took volumes to surge 10% before those moved. So essentially, the market was able to support, the capacity was able to handle 10% more demand before they started rejecting loads, before that started to happen. So I think you're right. We see rejections fall, we see rates fall because volumes are falling, but the capacity, we're able to handle way more than what's happening right now.
Yeah, way too much competition in the market, and we're just talking about van. I mean, tender rejections for flatbed are 2%. So
they're almost never lower than van, and now they're like half of what vans are.
I mean, tender rejections are down to 2% for flatbed. What is it, $5 a barrel? There's no fracking really happening. I mean, the flatbed market is gonna just take a plummet, and you are gonna need to diversify if you can. Right now. So
yeah. I think that for some of these guys, there will be consistent freight, right? People will continue to eat. Grocery stores will have consistent freight.
Right.
People are eating out less, which means they're having to buy more food at grocery stores. So I think that one will stay fairly stable. Yeah. And I think some consumer goods will stay stable, right? People are still going to take showers. They need soap, right? People are still going to need toilet paper. People are still going
essential products.
Right. It's all those essential products. people will continue to need. So
well, and this is why I brought it up on your post earlier when you said that imports are going to be surging and we're close to a floor. If those products are still going to be the moving products, then I don't see volumes really coming back up until consumer sentiment pops back up, and then I'm buying new TVs. I'm buying all these different products that we import from China, and so. But until then, I mean, we need restaurants back up and running.
I'm gonna prove Kyle wrong real quick. Let's go ahead and flip to the sonar chart.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go. This is U.S. import shipments retail imports.
Ooh.
This is just retail.
Ooh.
Okay, folks, please. I want somebody in the comments to disagree. We want healthy, good conversation here. Okay, please, because I might be totally wrong. But for sake of the show, we have to argue a little bit. Now, so if we're looking here, look at this. This is retail import shipments coming into the United States. We typically flow anywhere. Let me back this up. That's 3 months. Let's do 6 months, right? 6 months. We're already, generally speaking, we typically float, around the 1,200 to 1,700 shipments a day.
Yeah.
We're sitting at 1,200, almost a little under 1,300. We're off the bottom and we're rising, and we've been rising consistently for the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. We're not quite there yet. There's still a deficit to break, but if this continues, this right here tells me that people are still buying goods. Remember, a lot of our retail goods come from China, a lot. So if this continues, now it may stay here for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It may not, but this right here is something I was looking at. I was like, maybe the floor, maybe we've hit the floor. Now,
what?
we may not fully recover right away. We may hang out here for a little while.
Yeah.
But I was looking at that and I was like, I don't know.
That's actually pretty, now that I think about it, because maybe I'm putting too much weight. But we have 6.6 million people that are jobless right now.
A week. It's up to like over 15 million in the last 3 weeks.
It's insane, and so
I
that's
agree.
where
This baffles me. I don't understand this.
because we're having that, but I'm ordering at an all-time pace right now on Amazon.
Yeah.
And I am so mad that I don't have my 2-day shipping, but it makes sense. But looking at this, I don't know.
Yeah.
Comment below, everyone.
Yeah. For the folks watching, like when I say I think this is the bottom, it doesn't make sense. The chart is just telling us that people are still buying retail goods, and they're buying them at a faster rate. It's increasing. Like I don't understand that. So that's kind of where I say, now remember, it takes time for this to translate into truckload volume. Just because this is up, truckload volume isn't going to immediately, woohoo, here we are. It can take a few weeks for that to happen. It gets translated, it gets put into warehouses. So there's definitely some things that will happen there. So it may take time. It may have to continue to rise at these levels for a few more weeks for that to translate into truckload volume. But hopefully that's interesting. Well, we're getting close to the end of time here, man. This is always a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's always great to get out of Kyle's apartment and come over here and talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the freight market, because everyone has a different perspective. That's the best part about the freight economy, is that everyone is positioned differently and everyone has a different take on what's going on. And so that's why I love posting my videos. You post your videos to just stir conversation. And so that's the best part about it. And we can throw a little bit of data at you.
Boom.
Yeah. Mic drop. Here we go.
There we go. But for before the mic drop, we got any last minute comments?
Let's see. Dooner was up in the comments saying, "Put that coffee down."
Yeah, put it down.
Yeah,
I drink tea. So.
Let's see. We had another comment. Do you guys have any data on percentage of freight that's for those essential loads?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the quick answer is yes, we do, but not in the time that we have left. Yes. Next week on With Sonar. Tune in at 4 p.m. live every Wednesday, and we will be able to show you all those things. So we will hopefully get to this. I think that's just a good segue right there. So, folks, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure, as always. Thank you for your feedback. We'd love to continue these conversations. We'll be here next Wednesday live at 4 p.m. In the meantime, stay safe, be healthy, wish you the best out there, and we will keep you updated as to what is happening in the freight market as best we are able. Have a great evening.